My name is Clara Mitchell. I am 36 years old, and if someone had told me a few years ago that I would one day be forced to protect my daughter from her own grandmother, I would never have believed it. Life has never been simple for us, but I thought I had managed to build a safe and steady world for Lily, my 13-year-old daughter. We live in Seattle, in a modest two-bedroom house with creaky floorboards and a small garden that Lily loves to fill with sketchbooks and watercolor sets on sunny afternoons. I have been raising Lily on my own since she was 4. Her father left without looking back, and though I struggled at first, I promised myself that my little girl would never feel abandoned. I work as a freelance interior designer, picking up projects that allow me to be home most days when Lily returns from school. It is not a glamorous life, but it is honest, and we manage. Our home is filled with warmth, with laughter, with Lily's paintings taped to the walls, and the comforting smell of cinnamon cookies she loves to bake on weekends. Lily is my heart. She is bright, sensitive, endlessly creative. While other kids her age spend hours scrolling on their phones, she fills entire sketchbooks with drawings, characters, and stories that spill out of her imagination. Her teachers call her gifted, and I believe them. But with that gift comes a fragile heart. She takes every word to heart, every look, every tone. A harsh comment can stay with her for days. 2 years ago, my carefully balanced world shifted when Margaret, my former mother-in-law, showed up at my door. Margaret is my ex-husband's mother, a 67-year-old woman with a sharp tongue and eyes that always seemed to be judging. She had been widowed, she said, left with debts after selling her house, and needed a place to stay, just for a while. Against my better instincts, I let her move in. I told myself it was the right thing to do. Family helps family, after all. At first, I tried. I redecorated the guest room to make her comfortable. I cooked meals she preferred, adjusted our routines to accommodate her. But Margaret's presence was like a cold draft you can never quite seal. She carried herself as though she were the head of the household, her approval a prize you had to work for. And slowly, patterns emerged. Margaret had another set of grandchildren, the children of my ex-husband's brother, David, and his wife, Caroline. Their twins, Ethan and Emma, were just a year older than Lily. They attended private schools, played sports, had expensive hobbies. Margaret praised them endlessly, her eyes lighting up when she spoke of their achievements. She never seemed to have the same glow when Lily proudly showed her a drawing or told her about her latest story. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe I was oversensitive, but Lily noticed. And still, my daughter tried. She brought Margaret carefully drawn cards, offered to bake cookies together, asked for advice just to connect. Margaret always responded politely, but with a coolness that made my stomach twist. I told myself it was harmless, just small slights. I never imagined those small slights were the seeds of something that would one day break my daughter's heart wide open. The first real cracks in our fragile peace appeared within months of Margaret moving in. She was polite enough when it suited her, but it became harder and harder to ignore how she treated Lily compared to Ethan and Emma. Every Sunday, David and Caroline would bring the twins over for dinner. They always arrived in crisp outfits, talking about debate tournaments, robotics clubs, or their latest ski trip. Margaret would beam at them like sunlight through a stained glass window. She always had a special dessert hidden away for them: chocolate mousse, a bakery pie, sometimes even an elaborate cake. But when Lily asked if there was one for her too, Margaret would smile thinly and say, "Oh, I didn't know you liked sweets, dear. You never mentioned." Of course, Lily had mentioned it. Many times. She had baked dozens of cookies with her own hands, trying to share them with her grandmother. When Ethan showed off his science project one evening, a half-finished cardboard volcano, Margaret clapped her hands like he had just discovered electricity. But when Lily shyly unrolled a watercolor landscape she had worked on for days, Margaret glanced at it for 3 seconds before returning to her phone. "That's nice, dear," she murmured, already scrolling. I saw Lily's shoulders fall, though she forced a small smile. I tried to talk to Margaret about it once. We were in the kitchen cleaning up after dinner, the clatter of dishes filling the silence between us. "Margaret," I said carefully, "I think Lily sometimes feels left out when you spend so much time praising the twins. She looks up to you, you know." Margaret didn't even pause as she wiped a plate. "Children need to learn not to expect constant praise," she replied briskly. "It's better for their character." But that same evening, she gushed over Emma's dance recital photos for nearly half an hour, oblivious to Lily sitting quietly at the table. The pattern became undeniable. At Christmas, Margaret bought the twins brand name jackets and tablets, while Lily received a clearance sweater 2 sizes too big. She smiled and thanked her grandmother anyway, but when she went upstairs later, I heard her crying into her pillow. I began noticing something else too. Margaret would drop comments, almost casually, that cut deeper than she realized, or maybe exactly as deep as she intended. Ethan has David's eyes. Emma has Caroline's smile. Family genes are so strong, aren't they? She mused one evening while Lily sat right there twirling her fork. Or another time. It's important for children to know where they come from. Roots matter. That's what builds pride. She said it as if Lily were invisible, as if she didn't already know she was adopted and had been raised with nothing but love in my home. The cruelest part was that Lily kept trying. She made a scrapbook for Margaret's birthday, filled with photos and handwritten notes. Margaret thanked her but never looked past the first page. Yet when the twins gave her a store-bought scarf, she wore it daily for weeks. The shift in Lily was subtle at first. She grew quieter at dinners, laughed less, and started spending more time in her room. She still made cards and gifts for Margaret, still hoped for a word of approval, but I could see the hope dimming. One night, as I tucked her into bed, she asked me in a trembling voice, "Mom, do you think Grandma wishes I wasn't here?" It was a question that sliced through me like glass. I reassured her the best I could, but my heart ached with the fear that the answer might be yes. By late summer, Margaret came up with an idea she presented as if it were a gift to all of us. "Why not have a joint party this year?" she suggested one evening after dinner. "Ethan and Emma are turning 14 and Lily will be 13. They're close enough in age. One big celebration, one effort, less chaos." On the surface, it sounded practical. I was already working long hours to cover bills, and the thought of sharing expenses with David and Caroline did ease some of my worry. Lily's eyes lit up at the mention of a party. She had been talking about turning 13 for months. It was her milestone year, the year she finally felt like she was stepping into her own identity. So I agreed. We booked a community hall just a few blocks from our house. I took charge of decorations and the cake. David and Caroline agreed to handle drinks and music. Margaret insisted she had special surprises planned, though she gave no details. Lily threw herself into preparations. She spent evenings helping me cut out paper decorations, stringing fairy lights, and painting little signs with the words "Happy Birthday" in colorful letters. She wanted everything to be perfect. At school, her friends were buzzing with excitement about the party. For Lily, this was more than just cake and presents. It was a chance to feel like she belonged, like she wasn't always second place to her cousins. One night, as I tucked her in, she whispered, "Mom, do you think Grandma will like the card I made for her?" I drew flowers around the edges. She pulled it from under her pillow, the paper thick with watercolor blooms, her handwriting delicate and precise. "It's beautiful," I told her. "Anyone who receives that will feel loved." But a knot twisted in my stomach, because in the weeks leading up to the party, Margaret had been acting strangely. She started disappearing for hours, claiming errands. I caught her once in the parking lot outside a department store, speaking quickly into her phone. "Yes, I bought them both. Top of the line. They'll be so thrilled." When she noticed me, she hung up immediately and smiled. "Just talking to David about the drinks for the party," she said. But the shopping bags she shoved into the trunk were sleek and glossy. Nothing like grocery store plastic. Another time, I found her in her room hastily stuffing receipts into a drawer when I knocked. "Private things, Amanda," she said coldly. "Not everything concerns you." I tried to shake it off, but unease settled heavy on my chest. Something was being planned, and it wasn't for Lily. Meanwhile, Lily had her own birthday wish list. It wasn't extravagant. She wanted a new sketchbook, professional colored pencils, maybe a few novels from her favorite series. And then, almost hesitantly, she added, "Mom, my phone barely works anymore. Even a simple one would be amazing. Not fancy, just something that doesn't die in the middle of school projects." She asked with so much hope and so little expectation that I felt my heart squeeze. I promised myself I would find a way. Even if I had to work late into the night, I would get her that phone. She deserved at least that much. And as the day of the party drew closer, I held on to that promise, not realizing that Margaret's surprises would crush my daughter's heart in a way I could never have imagined. The morning of the party dawned with a sky so clear it felt like a promise. Lily was awake before the sun, too excited to stay in bed. She slipped into the new lavender dress we had saved up for, paired with white sneakers and a silver bracelet she had picked out with her babysitting money. She twirled in front of me, cheeks glowing. "Do I look like a teenager now, Mom?" she asked. "You look radiant," I told her, brushing back a loose strand of hair. In that moment, she was everything I had ever dreamed of for her. Confident, hopeful, on the cusp of a new chapter. The community hall was buzzing by early afternoon. Streamers hung from the ceiling, fairy lights twinkled, and the smell of cupcakes and nachos filled the air. Friends from school poured in, laughter echoing off the walls. Ethan and Emma arrived shortly after with David and Caroline, dressed in coordinated designer outfits. Margaret followed close behind, her arms full of glossy shopping bags. She whisked to the back room with an almost triumphant look. For a while, everything was perfect. The kids played games, sang karaoke, posed at the photo booth. I watched Lily from across the room, her laughter ringing like music. She was happy, truly happy, and I let myself breathe. Then came the cake. A 3-tier masterpiece I had ordered: chocolate for Lily, vanilla for Ethan, red velvet for Emma. 40 candles flickered in the dimmed room, everyone singing in unison. Lily's eyes glowed as she leaned forward with her cousins, their breaths mingling as the flames went out. Cheers erupted, cameras flashed, and then it was time for gifts. We set 3 chairs at the front of the room. The children took turns opening presents from friends and relatives, gift cards, books, art supplies. Lily's pile grew with thoughtful tokens, her smile never faltering as she thanked each giver. And then Margaret stood. She cleared her throat, commanding silence. "I have something very special for my grandchildren," she announced, her voice carrying. From the back room, she emerged with 2 rectangular boxes, wrapped in shimmering gold paper with extravagant bows. I felt my stomach drop. She handed one to Ethan, the other to Emma. "For my darlings," she said. The twins tore into the paper, and gasps filled the room as the contents were revealed. The newest iPhone 16 Pro Max, fresh from the box, screens gleaming under the lights. The twins leapt up, hugging her. "Thank you, Grandma," Ethan shouted. Emma squealed, "This is amazing!" The room buzzed with awe, but my gaze was on Lily. She sat perfectly still, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Her eyes flicked between her cousins' shining new phones and her grandmother's beaming face. Slowly, hesitantly, she asked the only question that mattered. "Grandma, did you get something for me too?" The entire hall went quiet. Margaret turned toward her, and in her expression there was no embarrassment, no apology, only irritation. "That's all I brought," she said flatly. "I only buy for my real grandchildren." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Someone dropped a fork. All 40 people stared in stunned silence. Lily's face crumpled, confusion twisting into heartbreak. "What do you mean?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Margaret shrugged, as though brushing off a gnat. "You're not blood, dear. You're not really part of this family." It was as if the air had been sucked out of the room. My daughter's eyes filled with tears. She stood so quickly, her chair toppled with a crash, then fled from the room sobbing. I froze, my blood boiling, my heart breaking. Every instinct screamed to lash out, to scream, to demand how anyone could be so cruel. But I couldn't leave my daughter alone. I rushed after her, my heels echoing against the tile. In the bathroom, I found her huddled on the floor, dress bunched around her knees, tears streaking her makeup. "Why does she hate me, Mom?" she choked. What did I do wrong?" I gathered her into my arms, holding her as tightly as I could. "Nothing, baby. You did nothing wrong. Grandma is wrong. She's the one who's broken, not you." Her small body shook against mine, and I knew in that moment something had shattered forever. Margaret's cruelty had crossed a line we could never come back from. And as I rocked my daughter in the corner of that bathroom, a single thought crystallized in my mind. This woman could not stay in our home any longer. The drive home after the party was suffocating. Lily sat in the back seat, her face pressed against the window, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. I wanted to pull over, hold her, promise her everything would be okay, but I knew she needed space to grieve in her own way. Margaret had left with David and Caroline, which was a blessing. I couldn't imagine surviving that ride with her sitting smugly beside us. When we pulled into the driveway, Lily rushed upstairs without a word. I lingered in the kitchen, still trembling from the rage boiling under my skin. A mother protects her child. That was my job. And I had failed to shield her from a woman who had cut her to pieces with words sharper than knives. Margaret returned later that evening, carrying her usual air of entitlement, as if nothing had happened. She dropped her purse on the counter and asked what was for dinner. My voice shook as I answered. "How dare you humiliate my daughter like that?" She barely blinked. "Amanda, you're overreacting. Children need to learn reality. She's not my blood. I spoke the truth." "Truth?" I hissed. "You call that truth? That was cruelty, Margaret. She's a child, my child." Her lips tightened. "Unknown origins are always complicated. You can't expect me to feel the same bond I have with David's children. That's just nature." I stood there, frozen, my hands gripping the counter so hard my knuckles turned white. Unknown origins. She spoke of my daughter as if she were a stray. Later, as I sorted laundry, I found a crumpled receipt in the pocket of Margaret's slacks. It was from a luxury electronics store. 2 iPhone 16 Pro Max, top-tier models, over $2,500. The date was 2 weeks before the party. She had planned this, deliberately, all while living rent-free under my roof, claiming her meager pension barely covered her medications. The betrayal was suffocating. Not only had she shattered my daughter's heart, she had lied about her finances, manipulating us into supporting her while she spoiled the twins. The next few days were heavy with silence. Lily refused to join meals, claiming she wasn't hungry. She ate crackers in her room, sketchbooks abandoned on the floor. My once vibrant girl had dimmed, shadows gathering under her eyes. On Wednesday, I received a call from her school counselor. "Mrs. Mitchell," she began gently, "I wanted to check in. Lily has been unusually quiet in class, and she hasn't turned in her last 2 assignments. Her teachers are concerned. Did something happen at home?" Shame flooded me as I admitted, "Yes, something happened." That evening, when I encouraged Lily to share her drawings, she shook her head. "What's the point? No one cares. Grandma doesn't think I'm really family. Maybe she's right." Her words cut deeper than Margaret's ever could. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about an insult at a birthday party. This was emotional abuse, poisoning the place my daughter was supposed to feel safest. And I knew then, this could not go on. Margaret had to be confronted, once and for all. By Thursday morning, I had made up my mind. The coffee in my hands trembled, not from caffeine, but from the weight of what I knew I had to do. Margaret had crossed every line. I wasn't going to let my daughter live in a home where she was treated like an outsider. When Margaret shuffled into the kitchen, wearing her silk robe and complaining about the coffee being too strong, I set my mug down. "We need to talk." She raised an eyebrow, clearly annoyed at my tone. "About what now?" "About Lily. About what you said at the party. About what you've been saying for months." Margaret waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, Amanda, are we still on that? Children are resilient. She'll forget soon enough." My voice hardened. "She's not forgetting. She's withdrawing, Margaret. She stopped eating with us. She's falling behind in school. She thinks she isn't really my daughter because of what you said. Do you understand what you've done?" She sipped her coffee leisurely. "If she's that fragile, maybe you should stop coddling her. I simply stated the truth. She's adopted. She's not my blood. Lucas and Emma are. There's no changing that." I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Family isn't about blood. It's about love, respect, and commitment. And if you can't see Lily as your granddaughter, then you have no place in her life, or in this house. Her eyes narrowed. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you have 24 hours to pack your things and leave." The mug clattered against the table as she slammed it down. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. You've been living here rent-free for 2 years, claiming you're broke, while spending thousands on gifts for the twins. You've lied to us, manipulated us, and worst of all, you've emotionally abused my daughter. This ends now. You are leaving. She shot to her feet, face red. You don't have the authority to throw me out. This was my son's house before it was yours. He would never allow this. I met her glare with steel. Your son left a long time ago. He abandoned his child and me, and I built this home without him. This is my house, Margaret. My name is on the lease, and my decision is final. Her lips curled in contempt. You're pathetic. A single mother clinging to scraps, acting like you have power. I'll call David. I'll call everyone, and when they hear how you've treated me, you'll be the one shamed. I leaned forward, my voice low but sharp. Call whoever you want. I have nothing to hide. But before you do, remember this. Every word you said to Lily at that party was heard by 40 people. They saw your cruelty. They heard you deny her. Do you really think anyone will side with you? For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. She straightened her robe, trying to mask it with arrogance. You'll regret this, Amanda. No, I said, calm now, almost cold. The only regret I have is not protecting my daughter from you sooner. I turned and walked away, heart pounding, already preparing for the storm that was sure to follow. The storm arrived sooner than I expected. By that afternoon, Margaret had already called David and Caroline, spinning herself as the victim of a cruel daughter-in-law who wanted to throw an old woman into the streets. David showed up an hour later, his jaw tight, Caroline trailing behind him. The twins waited at the car, glued to their new phones. Margaret immediately launched into her performance. She's heartless, David. After everything I've done, she's giving me 24 hours to leave. David turned to me. Amanda, is that true? You're kicking her out over a birthday gift? I swallowed my anger. No, David. I'm asking her to leave because she humiliated my daughter in front of 40 people. She told Lily she wasn't family, that she wasn't real. That's not something I can allow under my roof. Margaret folded her arms, eyes gleaming with false innocence. I simply stated a fact. Blood is blood. Caroline shifted uncomfortably. Margaret, did you really say that to Lily? She twisted my words, Margaret snapped. Amanda is just using this as an excuse to get rid of me. I didn't argue. Instead, I pulled out my phone and pressed play. The recording I had made during our kitchen confrontation filled the room with Margaret's own voice. She's adopted. She's not my blood. She's tainted. You can't expect me to treat her like real family. The silence afterward was deafening. Caroline's hand flew to her mouth. David's face drained of color. Margaret's eyes widened in shock. She hadn't realized I had proof. Still think I twisted your words? I asked quietly. David rubbed his temples, defeated. Mom, how could you say that? To a child? To Lily? Margaret's face hardened. Because it's true. And you all know it. Caroline stepped forward. No. What's true is that Lily is a beautiful, kind girl who deserves love, not cruelty. She turned to me. If you want her out, Amanda, we'll take her. She can stay with us until she finds her own place. Margaret sputtered, betrayed. You're siding with her? No, David said sharply. We're siding with what's right. Margaret went pale, then crimson, before storming off to her room to pack. When Lily came home from school, she stopped short at the sight of luggage in the hallway. Confusion clouded her face. What's happening? I knelt down to meet her eyes. Grandma's moving out. She'll stay with Uncle David and Aunt Caroline. Her lips trembled. Because of me? No, sweetheart, I said firmly. Because of her choices. None of this is your fault. Tears welled in her eyes, but this time they weren't just from pain. Relief was there too. A weight lifting. She whispered, Thank you, Mom. The next morning, David came with his SUV. Margaret made a scene. Loud sighs, muttered accusations, pointed looks, but the decision was final. As her bags were loaded into the car, Lily approached her cautiously. Goodbye, Grandma, she said softly. I hope you'll be comfortable. Margaret's response was cold, a clipped goodbye, without so much as a hug, but Lily held her head high. For the first time in weeks, I saw strength in her posture. She wasn't broken, she was learning to rise. When the car pulled away, a strange quiet settled over the house. Not heavy, but light. The air itself felt freer. Lily sat beside me at the table that night, eating with us again, her laughter hesitant but real. For the first time in 2 years, our home finally felt like ours again. The first week after Margaret left, the house felt strange, quieter, lighter, as if a shadow had lifted. At dinner, Lily actually spoke again, telling me about a funny moment at school, though her voice was still cautious, as if afraid someone would cut her off. When she laughed, really laughed, it was like music returning after a long silence. But the damage Margaret had done didn't vanish overnight. Lily still flinched at certain words, still retreated to her room when relatives were mentioned. She asked questions that broke my heart. Do you think Grandma ever loved me at all? Or did she just pretend? I never lied to her. I told her sometimes people are so blinded by their own prejudice that they can't see the beauty right in front of them. That wasn't Lily's fault. It was Margaret's. To help Lily heal, I signed us up for family counseling. Our therapist, Dr. Reynolds, was gentle but firm. She explained that what Margaret had done wasn't just rudeness. It was emotional abuse. Naming it helped. It validated Lily's pain and reassured her that she wasn't too sensitive or imagining things. It was real, and it wasn't her fault. Gradually, little pieces of my daughter returned. She began drawing again, colors spilling across the pages of her sketchbook. One evening, she bounded into the living room, holding up a painting of a girl standing at a crossroads, paths stretching in opposite directions. It's me, she explained. I'm deciding which road to take. I hugged her tightly, pride swelling in my chest. That painting, weeks later, was selected for a city-wide student exhibition. When she stood in the gallery explaining her work to strangers, her eyes glowing with confidence, I thought, this is what healing looks like. Margaret did not come to the exhibition. David and Caroline did, along with the twins. To my surprise, Ethan and Emma seemed different that day. They asked Lily about her art, genuinely curious. For the first time, I saw them look at her not as the odd cousin, but as someone worth admiring. Maybe witnessing their grandmother's cruelty had opened their eyes. Maybe they were choosing their own path, too. Afterward, Lily and I redecorated her bedroom as she'd dreamed months earlier. Teal walls, string lights, a new desk for her writing. It was more than just furniture. It was a fresh start, a declaration that her space and her life was hers. As for Margaret, she settled at David and Caroline's house, though I heard whispers through family that things weren't easy. Old habits die hard, and her controlling ways soon strained even their patience. I kept my distance, answering only when she called, always keeping conversations short and boundaries firm. If she ever wanted to be part of Lily's life again, the first step would have to be a genuine apology, a step I doubted she would take. One evening, Lily and I sat on the porch watching the sunset streak the Seattle sky in pink and gold. She leaned against me and said softly, "Mom, I know my worth now. Grandma didn't see it, but that doesn't mean it isn't real. I know I'm enough." Tears filled my eyes at her wisdom. My daughter, only 13, had learned a lesson some adults never grasp. That family isn't defined by DNA, but by love, by the people who choose you every day. Looking back, I realized Margaret's rejection, as painful as it had been, had given us something unexpected. It forced us to set boundaries. It forced me to stand up for my daughter in a way I had been too hesitant to before. And it taught Lily that her value is not up for debate, not even by family. Our story doesn't end with a fairy tale reconciliation. Margaret hasn't changed, and maybe she never will. But what did change was our home. Without her toxic presence, we found peace, laughter, and safety again. And that's the lesson I carry with me now. Sometimes protecting your child means making painful choices, even when others don't understand. Sometimes love looks like standing between your child and the people who should love them, but don't. Because true family isn't who shares your blood. It's who shows up with love, respect, and loyalty, and never makes you doubt for a second that you belong.